Chapter 1. The Forbidden Layer Beneath. Beneath the dust of ages and the quiet comfort of conventional history, there is a layer we are not meant to see. It begins with quiet anomalies, stories of impossibly worked stones found deep within untouched geological layers, of metallic spheres embedded in 2.8 billion-year-old rock, of core drillings in Antarctica that retrieved symmetrical structures at depths that predate any accepted notion of intelligent life. These aren't fringe whispers anymore. They are real findings, quietly filed away, rarely discussed in open academic circles. But for those who look deeper, they form a pattern. The Pre-Adamite theory holds that long before Homo sapiens rose on the African savanna, before the mythic Garden of Eden, and before Adam as described in Abrahamic traditions, there existed not just life, but civilization. Not hunter-gatherers nor early agrarians, but an advanced and organized global society. It was a civilization whose architecture rivaled our own, whose energy systems remain unknown, and whose downfall was so complete it required the rewriting of Earth's surface. Some say their cataclysm came from above, a planetary alignment, a solar event, an intentional cleansing. Others say it came from within, a collapse of consciousness or a technology that turned on its masters. But still their fingerprints remain. In the high Andes, a site like Sacsayhuaman defies the tools of the Inca. Blocks of stone weighing up to 200 tons are fitted together with microscopic precision, as if softened and molded. In Egypt, deep beneath the known pyramids, lie shafts and tunnels that predate dynastic records by millennia. In Antarctica, under 2 miles of ice, satellite imaging has detected linear patterns, too regular to be natural. And yet, despite all this, the story has been buried. We are told that history began in Mesopotamia, that everything before it was primitive darkness. But what if Mesopotamia was not the beginning, but the restart? The Pre-Adamites are not fantasy. They are a ghost civilization that haunts the bones of our earth. Their remnants speak not in words, but in stone, silence, and symmetry. What they left behind is not just archaeological. It is energetic, encoded into the resonance of sacred sites and the magnetic anomalies of the planet itself. The question is no longer, did they exist? The question is, why were they forgotten? Chapter 2. The Civilization Time. Erased time is not linear. It moves in cycles, in rises and falls. The ancients knew this. The Mayans, the Hindus, the Dogon, all spoke of great ages before our own, of suns that rose and fell, and of humans that were not like us. But modern history books, locked in a Cartesian grid of dates and dogma, see only one story. One line, one beginning. And conveniently, that beginning starts with us. But what if that line is only the latest in a long series of overwritten scripts? Across the planet, evidence mounts of global seafaring, precision engineering, and symbolic cosmology that has no rightful place in prehistory. The ruins of Baalbek in Lebanon, with its trilithon stones weighing up to 200 tons, suggest tools we don't possess today. The underwater complex of Yonaguni, off the coast of Japan, shows step-cut pyramidal forms submerged for over 10,000 years, a date that predates known human civilization by nearly double. In the Sahara, satellite scans reveal vast, buried city grids beneath the sand, entire megalithic sites lost beneath millennia of shifting dunes. And then there are the OO parts, out-of-place artifacts, like the Antikythera mechanism, a mechanical computer found in a Roman-era shipwreck with gears so precise they resemble Swiss watchmaking, or the Baghdad battery, or the iron pillar of Delhi that has not rusted in over 1,600 years. These are not isolated oddities. They are footprints left in the mud of history by something older, something deliberately forgotten. The pre-Adamite civilizations were not bound by the constraints of bronze or stone tools. They were engineers, stargazers, metaphysicians. They mapped the Earth with a level of understanding that implies aerial or orbital observation. Ancient maps like the Peary Race Chart show Antarctica's coastline, not as it appears today under ice, but as it would have been tens of thousands of years ago, ice-free, as confirmed by modern seismic surveys. How could that knowledge exist, unless there were eyes watching the world before the world began again? Many researchers now suspect that cataclysmic events, such as the Younger Dryas impact event around 12,800 years ago, were part of Earth's cyclical resets, massive floods, tectonic upheaval, and perhaps intentional extinction pulses that wiped the slate clean. Survivors became myths, their technologies became magic, and their knowledge was buried, or worse, safeguarded by elite lineages who shaped new civilizations in their own image. We walk on their cities, we build on their bones, and we worship in structures whose origins we no longer understand. To truly find the Pre-Adamites, we must look not just beneath the Earth, but beneath our assumptions. Chapter 3. The Fall That Wasn't Ours. There is a quiet arrogance in modern thought, the assumption that the great fall from paradise, described in myth and scripture, was our fall, that the expulsion from Eden, the Tower of Babel, the deluge, all refer to events that occurred within our historical lineage. But what if these were memories inherited from another species, another age, another fall? The Pre-Adamite theory suggests that the myths we carry, the ones echoed in every culture, from the Sumerian to the Norse, from the Hopi to the Hindu, are not metaphorical projections of psychological development. They are echoes. They are fractured transmissions of real events, passed down through collapsed epics, each layer more distorted than the last. Take the fall of man. Genesis tells of a garden, a serpent, and the knowledge of good and evil. But older Mesopotamian sources tell of gods who gave humans knowledge, writing, metallurgy, agriculture, and were punished for it. The Sumerians called them the Anuna. In some versions, they were not divine at all, but beings of flesh and brilliance, advanced, sentient, and technological. And they did not fall. They were overthrown. It is possible, even likely, that the Pre-Adamite civilization reached a technological singularity. They may have understood consciousness not just as biology, but as frequency. They could have manipulated matter with resonance, moved stone with sound, and interfaced directly with Earth's magnetic fields. Their temples were not mere shrines, but energetic hubs, machines of spiritual geometry. But something fractured. The Golden Age collapsed. Whether it was a war between factions, as echoed in the myth of the war in heaven, or a miscalculation in a planetary energy grid, or an AI rebellion beyond comprehension, the result was cataclysm, a biospheric reset. Oceans rose, skies darkened, tectonic plates tore open. But not all were destroyed. Some fled below. Ancient texts from Tibet and Central Asia speak of vast subterranean cities like Shambhala and Agartha, inhabited by shining beings. Native American stories tell of the ant people who took them underground to escape the fire from above. In Peru, the Chincana tunnels beneath Cusco wind so far that no explorer has mapped their full extent, and several who tried never returned. The Pre-Adamites may not have vanished. They may have simply moved out of reach, waiting, watching, guiding, or manipulating in silence. If we misunderstood the fall, if it wasn't ours to begin with, then what else have we misread? Perhaps our origins were not the beginning of a species, but the aftermath of someone else's end. Chapter 4. Bloodlines of the Forgotten. If a civilization falls but its survivors endure, where do they go? This is the question that lingers like smoke after the fire. For if the Pre-Adamites were real, if they ruled the earth before the rise of Homo sapiens, then what became of them? Were they wiped away by fire and flood? Or did their legacy seep into the world that came after? According to esoteric traditions, they did not vanish, they merged. Ancient texts and occult lineages speak of god kings, culture bringers, and sages who emerged after the great floods, tall, radiant beings with elongated skulls, pale skin, or serpentine features. The Sumerians called them the Apkallu. The Egyptians described the Shemsu-Hor, the followers of Horus. The Mayans had the white-bearded Viracocha. These weren't myths, they were records. Records of survivors from a pre-human age who walked among us as teachers or rulers. Some believe the Pre-Adamites had altered genetics, not entirely human as we understand it. Elongated skulls found in Paracas, Peru, lack the cranial sutures of normal Homo sapiens and exhibit a brain volume 25% larger than average. These skulls are not the result of binding. They are biologically distinct. DNA testing has revealed anomalies in mitochondrial DNA, suggesting unknown origins. These may have been the offspring of pre-Adamite human interbreeding, an attempt to seed their legacy within us. The idea of divine or hybrid bloodlines persists through history. The pharaohs of Egypt claimed descent from the gods and practiced incestuous marriage to preserve the purity of the line. The Merovingians of France traced their lineage to a fish god from beyond the stars. Even today, the world's elite families maintain genealogical records that span centuries, careful, curated, and hidden from public view. Could it be that a shadow lineage of pre-Adamite descent has steered the course of civilization from behind the veil? Secret societies, mystery schools, and bloodline dynasties, perhaps all remnants of a directive issued long ago, to rebuild, reshape, and control the post-cataclysmic world. In this light, our religions become memory mirrors. The sons of God who mated with the daughters of men in Genesis 6 were not angels, but survivors, beings of advanced origin seeking continuity. The flood was not punishment, but protocol. We were never the first. We may not even be the original. We are the inheritors of a shattered lineage, and some of the architects may still walk among us. Chapter 5. The Architecture of Memory. They say architecture is frozen music, a crystallized echo of thought and intention. But what if the great megaliths of the ancient world are more than that? What if they are memory itself, encoded in stone? Across continents, impossibly ancient sites share inexplicable commonalities. Cyclopean walls of polygonal stone, found in Peru, Egypt, Japan, and Turkey, fit together with such precision that even modern tools struggle to replicate them. These stones weren't carved and stacked. They were shaped, softened, perhaps even transmuted. Their form suggests not brute force, but mastery over matter. Not trial and error, but inherited understanding. In the pre-Adamite framework, these structures were not built for humans. They were remnants. Blueprints of a civilization whose sense of scale, purpose, and technology was vastly different than our own. The massive trilithon at Baalbek, the underground chambers of Derinkuyu, the sunken megaliths at Lake Titicaca, they all whisper the same story. Someone came before. But more than just buildings, these sites function as data vaults, resonant archives built to last through resets. Many are aligned with specific star constellations, solar equinoxes, or acoustic frequencies. The Great Pyramid of Giza, for instance, resonates at 432 Hz, a harmonic frequency that corresponds with planetary vibration, water structure, and even the human brain. This is not coincidence. This is engineering, not mechanical, but metaphysical. It is as though the Pre-Adamites embedded memory into the very geometry of space. They encoded timelines into angles, stories into ratios, and warnings into alignments. These were not just temples, they were consciousness interfaces, libraries of vibration. And we, the inheritors, walk among them blind. The priesthoods of antiquity may have once known this, but over time, understanding gave way to ritual, and ritual to superstition. Today, tourists snap selfies at temples they don't understand, while the stone beneath them hums softly with forgotten frequencies. Some modern researchers have begun experimenting with sematics, the science of how sound affects matter, and have discovered that sacred symbols like the flower of life emerge naturally when specific frequencies are applied to a medium like sand or water. These same symbols are etched into Pre-Adamite ruins worldwide. Did the ancients build with sound? Did they encode vibrational keys into their architecture, hoping that someday someone would remember how to read it? Our ancestors may have been illiterate in the written sense, but their monuments speak a language of stone, light, and resonance. Perhaps we were meant to listen all along. Chapter 6. The Ice Veil of Antarctica. It is the last frontier of secrecy. A continent veiled in ice, cordoned off by treaties, guarded by military installations, and spoken of only in whispers. Antarctica, we are told, is a frozen wasteland, a place of penguins, science outposts, and ancient ice cores. But what if its silence conceals not emptiness, but memory? The Pre-Adamite theory places Antarctica at the heart of a forgotten epoch. Ancient maps, like the Peary Race Chart of 1513, depict the continent not as a glacier-covered void, but as an ice-free landmass complete with rivers and mountains. Modern seismic scans confirm these land features beneath the ice. But how did a 16th-century sailor chart them? The answer offered by conventional scholars is always the same: coincidence, error, or imagination. But patterns repeat. The Orontius Phineas map of 1531, the Mercator projection of 1569, all show Antarctica before it was entombed, before the cataclysm that, according to ice core data, arrived around 12,000 years ago. The same window of time marked by the Younger Dryas, by the extinction of megafauna, and by the sudden emergence of megalithic construction across the globe. To the Pre-Adamite researchers, this is no coincidence. Antarctica was not always a land of ice. It was once temperate, habitable, perhaps even the cradle of an advanced polar civilization. Its central position on ancient maps may hint at it being a forgotten hub of planetary alignment, a zero point of geodetic control. Whispers from military insiders speak of massive heat signatures beneath the ice, anomalous EM readings, and symmetrical structures embedded within the subsurface rock. Operation High Jump, a post-World War II U.S. military expedition led by Admiral Richard Byrd, was officially a research mission, but declassified logs and testimonies suggest encounters with advanced aerial craft and strange technologies. Could the Pre-Adamites have taken refuge there, beneath the ice shelf, encased in cryonic stasis or hidden within vibrationally sealed chambers? Ancient texts speak of lands beyond the great southern ice, where gods slept in shining cities. Esoteric traditions reference beings who entered the long dream, a state between dimensions, awaiting the return of specific celestial alignments. Perhaps that return is already underway. The melting of Antarctica is accelerating. Ice sheets that held firm for millennia now collapse into the sea. But maybe, just maybe, this is not just a climate event. Maybe something beneath is waking, not alive in the human sense, but conscious. A beacon, a machine, a vault. If we accept that Antarctica was once the Pre-Adamite heartland, then we must also accept that what lies beneath could alter the entire trajectory of human history. Perhaps that is why access is so tightly controlled. Perhaps that is why, for all our technological prowess, we are kept away. Because under the ice, the oldest civilization on Earth still waits, silent, intact, and not entirely dead. Chapter 7. The Codex of the Sky. Long before humans built observatories, before the invention of the telescope, before Babylon cataloged the stars, someone was watching the heavens. In every ancient culture, sky knowledge forms the backbone of myth and monument. the alignment of temples to solstices, the construction of entire cities in mirror image of star clusters. These are not mere artistic flourishes. They are evidence of a deeper cosmological blueprint. The Pre-Adamites, it is believed, were not just astronomers. They were celestial engineers. Their monuments, from the Great Pyramids of Giza to Teotihuacan, were not randomly placed. They mirrored the stars. They locked into the rhythm of the cosmos. In Angkor Wat, the temple towers align with the constellation Draco during the spring equinox. At Göbekli Tepe, the oldest known temple on Earth, stone circles mark the rising of Sirius and the movements of the moon. How could Neolithic peoples achieve such accuracy? The answer is simple. They didn't. They inherited the knowledge. The Pre-Adamites may have operated not within the framework of linear science, but through a synthesis of consciousness, geometry, and stellar harmonics. The stars were not just navigational tools. They were memory repositories, part of an interplanetary network. Ancient cultures spoke of the heavens as a vault, a living dome that encoded stories, warnings, and energetic signatures. Orion was not just a constellation, it was a map. Sirius was not just a star, it was a portal. This view is echoed in the Dogon tribe of Mali, who somehow possessed advanced knowledge of Sirius B, a white dwarf companion star invisible to the naked eye and undiscovered by modern astronomy until the 20th century. They claim it was given to them by Homo, amphibious sky beings who came from Sirius and brought with them sacred knowledge. Mainstream science scoffs, yet the precision remains unexplained. What if the Codex of the Sky was the central legacy of the Pre-Adamites, a celestial book, not of pages, but of alignments? And what if the great resets of Earth, its floods, fires, and pole shifts, were not random, but rhythmic, predictable, encoded into the firmament by a civilization that had learned to read the heartbeat of the galaxy? If true, this changes everything. It means we are not drifting through a meaningless cosmos. It means our ancestors built with purpose, not to honor the stars, but to interface with them. The ancients did not look to the heavens in awe. They looked in recognition. Chapter 8. The War of the Worlds Before Ours. There is a reason the past was buried so deeply. Beneath the mythologies, beneath the veiled records of cataclysm and rebirth, lie hints of a far older and far darker truth. That the Pre-Adamite civilization did not simply vanish by disaster, but by war. Ancient texts across cultures speak of battles so devastating they scarred the earth itself. The Mahabharata describes weapons that could evaporate armies in an instant, blast cities to ash, and turn rivers to poison. In the Book of Enoch, rebel angels descend to earth and bring destruction. The Popol Vuh of the Maya tells of beings from the stars who made and unmade entire races. Even the Sumerian Enuma Elish reads like a post-war transmission, a tale of cosmic conquest, genetic creation, and planetary reordering. To the believer in the Pre-Adamite theory, these are not fables. These are records of a planetary war. One that was waged long before the rise of Homo sapiens. One that ended the last global civilization and reset the clock of humanity. Some suggest that factions within the Pre-Adamite world diverged. One embraced harmony with natural energy fields, building crystalline cities powered by the Earth's resonance. The other turned inward, toward control, experimentation, and the manipulation of life itself. This divergence may have erupted into a global conflict, a war not over land or wealth, but over the future of sentient life. There are geological scars to support this. The vitrified forts of Scotland, stone walls melted as if by plasma fire, the Mohenjo-Daro skeletons with radiation levels far beyond natural background, the Sahara's massive glass fields, visible only by satellite, which resemble nuclear test sites. These are not anomalies. These are impact signatures. And then there is Mars. Some of the most compelling alternative research suggests that the war may not have been confined to Earth alone. Mars, once rich with water and atmosphere, now bears the hallmarks of a sudden planetary catastrophe. Vast rift valleys, dried riverbeds, and even what appear to be artificial structures suggest a civilization that once was, and was silenced. Could the Pre-Adamites have been interplanetary? Was Earth the final stage of an ancient cosmic war? If so, what we think of as our origin story may be the aftermath of someone else's apocalypse. The victors, if there were any, buried the evidence beneath ice, sand, and denial. The survivors rewrote history, and we, the successors, were left only with fragments. Not everything that fell from the sky was a star. Some were weapons, some were escape vessels, and some never left. Chapter 9. The Genetic Architects. The story of human origins, as told by science, is neat and orderly. A slow progression from ape to man, from primitive to complex, shaped by natural selection. But beneath that narrative, strange inconsistencies ripple like static through a broadcast, missing links that never appear, sudden explosions of intelligence, organs without evolutionary precedent, and then the mystery of our own DNA. The human genome is a labyrinth, over 3 billion base pairs, yet more than 90% of it classified as junk by early geneticists. But this so-called junk may be anything but. Recent discoveries reveal that non-coding DNA regulates gene expression in complex and mysterious ways. It behaves like a hidden operating system, silent, embedded, and ancient. Some researchers now propose that this genetic code was not a random product of mutation, but a design, a script written by those who came before. In the context of the Pre-Adamite theory, humanity itself may be a project, an engineered species, optimized for survival, sensory awareness, and, perhaps, control. Ancient myths from every continent speak of gods forming mankind from clay, breath, blood, or stars. In Sumer, Enki, and Ninhursag craft the first humans as workers for the Anunnaki. In Genesis, "Let us make man in our image," is uttered not by a singular god, but a plurality. In the Apocrypha, Watchers descend to earth and father hybrid offspring, the Nephilim, beings of great power, feared and hunted. These stories may not be fables, but fragmented recollections of a controlled creation, a bioengineered reboot by Pre-Adamite survivors or their descendants. The elongated skulls found in Paracas, the giant humanoid skeletons exhumed and quietly removed from the Smithsonian archives, and the recurring theme of hybrid beings in ancient art, all point to genetic manipulation. The serpent, so often a symbol of DNA, appears in the earliest carvings as a figure of knowledge, not evil. In some interpretations, it is not the tempter, but the teacher, the one who awakened us. What if the Pre-Adamites did not die, but became the architects of the next species? Us? Were we seated as stewards? Or slaves? As a reset? Or a continuation? The implications run deep. Perhaps our memory loss was no accident. Perhaps it was programmed, a safety protocol, a built-in amnesia to prevent us from accessing knowledge before we were ready. But now, the genome is being unlocked. CRISPR and epigenetics edge us closer to the source code. And like any system, once you can read the code, you can trace the author. The question is, what happens when we finally understand the language of our creators and what they left behind? Chapter 10. The Machinery of the Gods. The ancients left us their myths, stories of chariots in the sky, flying shields, thunderous machines that could flatten cities, and beings of fire, metal, and light who descended from the heavens. These tales, from the Vedas to the Popol Vuh, have been dismissed as poetic metaphor, until now. Modern interpretations, especially within the Pre-Adamite framework, propose something radically different. that these were not metaphors at all, that the gods of old wielded machines, real, physical, technological devices, so advanced they were mistaken for divine phenomena. This chapter explores the concept of techno-divinity, that the Pre-Adamites, or those who survived their collapse, did not abandon their machines, but embedded them into the fabric of myth and the bones of earth. Consider the Vimana, flying vehicles described in the Mahabharata and other Sanskrit texts, capable of vertical takeoff, sonic speeds, and beam weaponry. Descriptions go into detail: propulsion systems, navigation panels, aerial maneuvering, not something one expects from ancient religious lore. Were the Vimana the aircraft of the Pre-Adamites? Or the Ark of the Covenant, a device so sacred it had to be carried with insulated rods, known to emit deadly force, and which would speak to its keepers? Was it a power core, a communication device, or something far more complex? There are temples, like the Kailasa temple in India, carved entirely from a single stone mountain, with precision that suggests the use of sonic or laser cutting. Local legends claim the temple was built in a single night. Mainstream archaeology offers no plausible method of its construction, especially without leaving behind any tools or debris. And then there is the Great Pyramid. Its alignment to true north is more precise than most modern architecture. Internal chambers resonate at specific frequencies. There is no soot inside, suggesting it was never lit with torches. Many researchers now believe it was not a tomb, but a machine, perhaps for generating harmonic energy, or as part of a planetary stabilization grid. These weren't just monuments. They were engines, frequency generators, memory repositories, dimensional stabilizers. When the Pre-Adamites fell, their machines were left behind, inert, buried, repurposed by later cultures who misunderstood their true nature. And if some of those devices are still functional, who holds the keys? Secret research groups, esoteric orders, even world governments may have retrieved fragments of Pre-Adamite technology, relics from a world erased. Perhaps this is the real reason for the secrecy surrounding places like Antarctica, or the global race to map ancient underground complexes. In a post-cataclysm world, possessing a single working Pre-Adamite machine would be like holding the Promethean flame. It would grant power, influence, and perhaps access to the memory of an entire forgotten age. And what if some of these machines were never meant to be restarted? Chapter 11. The Seal of Amnesia. If the Pre-Adamites once ruled this world, if they built the pyramids, seeded our DNA, and encoded memory into stone and sky, then why don't we remember? Why does humanity emerge from the mists of history as if struck by sudden brilliance, with no recollection of what came before? Why do we find ourselves haunted by symbols we cannot translate, myths we can't quite place, and an aching nostalgia for something we've never known? The answer, some believe, is intentional forgetting. In many esoteric traditions, there is a concept of the Great Seal, a veil cast over human memory, placed by those who came before, or by those who feared what we might become. The Pre-Adamites, according to this theory, understood consciousness not just as a byproduct of biology, but as a frequency, a tunable field. Memory, perception, and even belief could be manipulated through resonant patterns. They may have sealed the human mind. In Tibetan Buddhism, there is a teaching that all beings are born in a state of forgetfulness, and that enlightenment is not learning, but remembering. The Gnostics spoke of the archons, beings who cloud human awareness and trap us in loops of illusion. In the Book of Enoch, angels are bound beneath the earth, their knowledge locked away until a future age. All of these echo the same idea. Something was hidden, not just from the world, but from us. There are curious patterns that support this. Global myths of a fall, not just from grace, but from awareness. Sudden declines in lifespans in early biblical texts. Ancient rites that claim to awaken the inner eye, or restore the original memory. even the pine cone motifs found in Assyria, Egypt, and the Vatican, symbolizing the pineal gland, long associated with higher consciousness and direct perception. Some researchers now suspect that structures like Stonehenge, the Great Pyramid, and the Sphinx weren't just places of ritual. They were part of a planetary consciousness grid, a network designed to align human awareness with Earth's energetic fields. But when that system collapsed, by war, cataclysm, or sabotage, the link was severed. Memory was lost, or perhaps erased. We are like amnesiacs wandering through a palace we once built, marveling at its design, unable to recall we were the architects. We look up at the stars and feel something stir, something old. We touch the stones of ancient temples and feel a vibration we can't name. The forgetting was not a failure. It was a feature, a lock placed on the soul until the code could be remembered. And now, as global consciousness rises, as lost languages are deciphered and ancient frequencies rediscovered, perhaps the seal is beginning to crack. And when it does, the memories will not return as dreams. They will return as truth. Chapter 12. The Custodians of the Threshold. Not all who remember the past want it to be known. Across cultures, there are whispers of hidden orders, secret keepers, watchers, gatekeepers of ancient truth. They go by many names: the Brotherhood of the Snake, the Priory of Sion, the Nine Unknown, the Black Venetians. Their stories are cloaked in secrecy, their presence denied by official history. Yet throughout the millennia, they appear, always adjacent to power, always just outside the light. According to the Pre-Adamite theory, these are the custodians of the threshold, the inheritors of knowledge too dangerous to unleash. Whether born of Pre-Adamite descent, hybrid bloodlines, or simply guardians trained across generations, they hold the fragments of a story the world has forgotten. A story etched not just in glyphs, but in vaults, machines, and encoded rituals passed from one age to the next. They may have emerged from the ashes of the last cataclysm, a council of survivors who vowed never to let such destruction happen again, or who vowed to retain dominion over what remained. These orders don't merely preserve ancient scrolls or relics. They preserve access. Access to underground chambers that remain sealed to this day. Access to frequency keys that can activate dormant structures. Access to the memory lattice of the planet itself, a crystalline grid embedded with echoes of the past, resonating in ways only they understand. There are persistent rumors of high-level organizations in possession of pre-Adamite artifacts. Not museum pieces, but functional technology. Devices that can shift perception, manipulate electromagnetic fields, or even access information beyond the confines of linear time. If such devices exist, they would not be placed in public hands. They would be guarded, used selectively, perhaps even worshipped. From the Vatican's secret archives to the unexplained tunnels beneath the Giza Plateau, from the unbreakable seals of Mount Busegi in Romania to whispers of ancient installations beneath Greenland, there is a map of concealed knowledge, and someone holds the coordinates. These custodians are not necessarily unified. Some seek preservation, others seek control, and some may serve purposes beyond our understanding entirely. Agents of continuity in a game that spans not centuries, but cycles. They appear in history as strange advisors, cloaked wanderers, or anonymous financiers of expeditions to forbidden places. They appear in dreams, in art, in sudden insights that feel more like remembering than imagination. They are not gods. They are not devils. They are simply those who remember what the world has been and what it is destined to become again. But the age of secrecy is thinning. The veil is not what it once was. As humanity awakens and consciousness rises, even the custodians may find that they no longer stand between the world and its forgotten truth, but beside it. Chapter 13. Echoes in the Grid. There is a map beneath the map. a network hidden not in ink or satellite imagery, but in stone, resonance, and memory. Ancient cultures spoke of it with reverence, the song lines, the dragon paths, the ley lines. To the modern world, these are superstitions, but to the pre-Adamite theorist, they are something else entirely: infrastructure. The Earth, it is said, hums with energy, a subtle electromagnetic pulse that we have long forgotten how to hear. But the Pre-Adamites had not forgotten. They built upon it. They aligned their cities, temples, and monuments with the natural frequencies of the planet itself. From Angkor Wat to Giza, from Stonehenge to Machu Picchu, their sites form a global pattern, a grid of consciousness and control. This grid, sometimes referred to as the planetary energy matrix, was not decorative. It was functional. The Pre-Adamites may have used it to stabilize the Earth's magnetic field, to enhance human consciousness, or to communicate instantaneously across vast distances through harmonic resonance. Each node on this grid was like a tuning fork, humming in harmony with both Earth and sky. But something changed. Many of these sites have fallen silent. Some are buried, others damaged or sealed. Geomagnetic surveys show that energy once pulsed through them, but now lies dormant or disrupted. Could this be the real reason so many ancient locations were buried, flooded, or abandoned? Not because the people vanished, but because the grid was shut down. Perhaps it was dismantled by force during the great wars of the Forgotten Age. Or perhaps it was sealed as a failsafe, never to be reawakened unless humanity proved ready. Today, whispers persist of strange electromagnetic anomalies at ancient sites. Compasses fail. Radios crackle, cameras glitch, and in some rare moments, during solstices, eclipses, or deep meditation, people claim to hear something, a tone, a vibration, a voice not in words but in feeling. Are these echoes from a time when Earth was alive in a different way? When human thought was not separate from planetary resonance but part of it? We build wireless towers and satellites. They built monoliths and circles of stone. But the purpose was not so different: to connect, to align, to remember. The Pre-Adamite grid still exists, buried beneath cities, submerged under oceans, hidden in jungle and ice. It is not broken, only asleep. And just as the Earth turns, perhaps the day is coming when the ancient frequency returns, and the entire planet begins to hum once more. Chapter 14. The Return of the Cycle. The ancients didn't just track time, they felt it. To the Pre-Adamites, and the civilizations they seeded, time was not a straight arrow, but a spiral. A great breath of creation, expansion, contraction, and renewal. What we call history, they saw as seasons. Golden ages would rise and collapse into dark epochs. Civilizations would flourish, then fall, and always, the stars would return to their places, and the story would begin again. In nearly every mythological system, we find reference to world ages. The Yugas of India, the 5 sons of the Aztecs, the Great Year of Plato. The Hopi speak of previous worlds, 3 destroyed, 1 now nearing its end. The Pre-Adamite theory views these not as myths, but as records of planetary memory, markers of previous resets, timed to the movements of the cosmos itself. Our solar system is not static. It spirals through the galaxy, passing through energetic zones, gravitational shears, and fields of subtle radiation. These zones affect everything, from climate to consciousness. At certain thresholds, the veil between worlds thins. And when that happens, buried technologies awaken. Lost memories return. Dormant systems begin to pulse once more. Many now believe that we are approaching one of those thresholds. Solar activity is increasing. Earth's magnetic field is weakening. Schumann resonance spikes occur with strange regularity. And across the globe, people are feeling it. A restlessness, a sense of anticipation, a waking dream of something vast on the horizon. This is not coincidence. This is a return. Ancient structures, long dormant, have begun to respond. In Egypt, vibrations have been detected in chambers once thought silent. In South America, glyphs long obscured are now being revealed by climate change and shifting terrain. Even Antarctica is melting, revealing geometric patterns on satellite that defy explanation. It is as if the Earth itself knows. The Pre-Adamites, if they truly existed, did not vanish. They seeded their memory across stone and sky, encoded their warnings into myth, and hid their machines beneath mountains and ice, and they timed it all to now, to this moment. Their machines are not simply reactors or beacons, they are timers, and they are counting down. Whether this return will bring enlightenment, upheaval, or both, no one can say. But one thing is clear, the spiral is turning, and what has been buried is beginning to stir. We are not at the end of history. We are standing at the edge of a new beginning. Chapter 15. The Memory We Inherited. The story was never lost, only silenced. In every myth, in every ruin, in every dream that felt older than time, the Pre-Adamites have been waiting, not as ghosts, not as gods, but as echoes in our bones, a memory we inherited without knowing, a map etched into the structure of our consciousness. For too long, we've accepted a curated history, a timeline with guardrails, curated by textbooks and carbon dates, conveniently clean. But when you stand inside the megalithic silence of Baalbek, when you trace the golden geometry of Angkor Wat, when you kneel before the unblinking stone eyes of Tiwanaku, something stirs. Not in the intellect, but in the body. A memory not taught, but triggered. We carry it. The Pre-Adamite theory suggests we are not the first version of humanity, nor even the second. We are the inheritors of a fallen architecture, spiritual, technological, genetic. But we are also the continuation. The story was never about replacing the past. It was always about fulfilling it. And now, in the twilight of one age and the quiet breath before another, we are beginning to awaken. The veil is thinning. The machines hum softly beneath our cities. Sacred geometry rises in our algorithms. Children dream of stars and know their names before they're taught. It's not evolution, it's activation. This final chapter is not a warning. It is a responsibility. If the Pre-Adamites seeded memory in the stones, in the sky, in the resonance of the earth itself, then their hope was not preservation. It was restoration. Not a return to the past, but a rejoining of what was divided. Perhaps this is why the myths always end the same way, not in fire or ruin, but in return. The god who rises, the star that reappears, the city beneath the ice that lights up once more, the world not ending, but waking. And in that awakening, we may finally remember who we are, not Homo sapiens, lost children of a linear tale, but the descendants of a forgotten brilliance. We were never just the product of evolution. We are the descendants of memory, and now the memory is waking.